Okay, so the next agenda item is item number 4, tackling violence against women and girls, and that's DCI Routledge. Over to you.
Thank you. Yes, so my name's Gail Routledge. I'm the Detective Chief Inspector. I'm here to present today on some of the ongoing initiatives and work that's ongoing in force about how we tackle violence against women and girls. Glasses on. The UK government made a pledge that they would halve violence against women and girls by 2035, and Nottinghamshire Police are committed to supporting that pledge. In December 2025, the government set out clear direction and expectations for agencies, and that included all police forces. Nottinghamshire Police's approach is using the national framework of the 4P plan, which actually takes me quite nicely into the next slide. There's a multitude of activity under the Vogue banner within Force, but what I've done for each of these slides is just highlight one or two sort of key areas of work. So the first P is prepare. And what I've identified here and what I'm showing today is a data-driven dashboard that's within Force. It was launched towards the end of 2025, and it's available key for the neighbourhood policing teams, but also to the wider workforce. And what that actually does is that enables local officers and neighbourhood policing teams to identify perpetrators within the community who are subject to prevention orders. So they would, the key ones that I've highlighted on the slide are the domestic violence prevention notices, which in turn would, as on application, become domestic violence protection orders, and also the stalking prevention orders. So ultimately what this is, it's an intelligence-driven platform that informs local officers but also the wider workforce. And what's key to the local officers and the neighbourhood policing teams is that they know their area, so they know the individuals who reside on their area subject to these orders. It allows officers to proactively and confidently police these orders, and that's for compliance, which again in turn leads to safety and safety measures. It's a positive action, which also allows at the earliest opportunity for officers to identify any breaches, and again, like we say, positive actions taken by officers at that point. So it really is an important tool within the policing toolkit to support violence against women and girls and the policing of those prevention orders. Moving on to the next slide. For this slide, again, there are many activities within Force, but again, I've highlighted one on this slide, and that's under the P of protect. I've chosen MARICs, which are the multi-agency risk assessment conferences. And what I'd like to present about these conferences is that they're well embedded within Nottinghamshire. They're also well attended by multiple statutory agencies, but also commissioned services and our third-party sector. And from Nottinghamshire Police, we ensure that there is attendance at each and every conference, and that is by a ranked officer. So that is an officer of at least the rank of sergeant. And I think that also showcases the commitment that we have towards the importance of these conferences. The conference itself is an information sharing forum, and as I've mentioned, it's attended by a number of agencies and services. It's a coordinated approach to allow informed decisions and outcomes, and it's in relation to high-risk DA cases. It's primarily focused on the victim and the support to the victim, but it also considers the perpetrators. And partners and agencies that attend these forums would include housing associations, local authorities, social care, women's aid, commissioned services such as Juno within the county and the city, and for children as well, because children are also considered as part of this, as the family unit. There's also Imara. Ultimately what this is, it's a professionals meeting to make informed decisions and look at safety planning and support moving forwards. That includes long term, but also we don't want to lose the voice of the survivor, so that is shared within these forums using the support of the IDVAs, so the Independent Domestic Violence Advisors, and where appropriate an Independent Sexual Violence Advisor as well. So these are really key when we look at how we're tackling Vogue offending and supporting survivors of these offenders. The next P on slide is pursue. I've highlighted on this slide Operation Soteria, which again it may be mentioned throughout the board. But Operation Soteria is a national drive, and it's around improving RASO investigations and outcomes. So RASO are rape and serious sexual offences. Whilst it's suspect focused, it's also victim centred. To achieve the outcomes, it does require close working with partners, and one of those partners is the Crown Prosecution Service. Within Force, we do have dedicated both strategic and tactical leads, and again, this is to ensure that our approach is appropriate and we do succeed, and we're continually making improvements. I do have some data in relation to this. So this is around charge rate, and this is for the most serious offence of rape, sexual offence. In 24-25, the charge rate for this offence was 8.9%, which is an increase from 6.81% in 2023. And actually, as a region, we are leading the way in relation to rape. And I say that is as a result of the dedication of our officers and our investigators. Within Force, we are one of the forces that have specialist RASO investigation teams, and they sit within our operational public protection units. Again, I think this reflects the commitment and how we can support survivors, but also the ongoing pursuit of perpetrators of these crimes. The next slide is the P for prevent. So there has been previous media releases around Walk in My Shoes, and I've highlighted this, and this was done jointly with the PCC's office. So Walk in My Shoes was an innovative campaign, and it provided a powerful insight into the lived experiences of women and girls in Nottinghamshire. Throughout the campaign, we actually had responses of over 2,800 people, and they all participated in this campaign, which is a fantastic response across the county. What we were able to do is we were able to identify key areas, times and periods of the day or week where women and girls felt unsafe. So the next question is, what did we do with that? So we analysed those responses. Out of the key areas that were identified, they were across both city and county. They've previously been released within media, but I can mention them here today if you'd like me to go over them again. So within the city, it was the Angel Row and the Marketplace, Rushcliffe, Gedling and Arnold with a County Hall walkway. Ashfield area was Forest and Fox Street. Newark was primarily the Marketplace, and Mansfield was the Four Seasons Shopping Centre. So what did we do about that? We looked at the data and we looked at the responses, and we listened to the responses and what the women and girls shared and the people shared in their responses. Working with partners, again, this is key because this was very much a collaborative and working together approach. We worked with we've increased police and council patrols, and we've targeted those at the times of day and evening and weekends that were as a result of the responses. We looked at the environment and we looked at what improvements and interventions could take place, and one key area was around visibility. And when we looked at the County Hall area and the walkway behind that, improving visibility was key, and that was something like looking at the environment and ensuring that the walkways were clear, cutting back trees, cutting back bushes and ensuring that that visibility was there. We also looked at improving lighting, and that was in many areas, all 5 areas, but what we were able to identify was certainly in the Newark area and the Marketplace that was identified. Actually working with that local council, there is work in place to improve that lighting, and the expected improvement is around 25%, which we feel is really significant improvement for visibility. And another key point, and again, there were many, but I'm wanting to highlight them. And again, this is working with yourselves at the PCC's office. The introduction of safe points. And what that is, it's a jointly funded, but it's a camera-enabled safety point. So any person in any area who feels unsafe is able to go to these points. And it's a direct link to the police control room. So again, it's that early engagement and that advice and resourcing. So again, I think from that aspect, this is a massive stride forward when we look at tackling violence against women and girls, but also making and ensuring that the communities feel safe within our area. The last one I've popped on there, apologies, you right to go back to the previous slide. Sorry. The last one on there is the introduction of the V10 programme. So this is a programme within Nottinghamshire Police, and what it does is using a methodology of recency, frequency and gravity of incidents, and these are DA incidents, domestic abuse. We're able to identify the 10 most harmful perpetrators within our community. And again, this is intelligence-led, but it is a joint approach with agencies, and it's looking at tackling and understanding the underlying issues and deferring from those behaviours. So we work with partners and look at addiction, employment, housing again, but also we have a robust policing approach, and that's taken from an offender management approach. So again, that's something that's recent in force but has been launched. Next slide. Thank you. So lastly, moving forwards and looking at next steps. As we move further into 2026, again, there is activity within force, but I wanted to highlight two key areas. The DRIVE programme is a Home Office funded programme that will be launched within Nottinghamshire jointly with support from the Home Office and the PCC's office. We're looking towards the end of summer 2026. And what this programme will do, in effect, it will complement the already established V10 programme. It offers direct interventions to address the behaviours of perpetrators, so it's very perpetrator focused, but it addresses the behaviours of DA perpetrators and it challenges those behaviours. It aims to reduce the risk of reoffending. So again, very much in its infancy, however, we are looking to deliver that in summer 2026. And the final point on there, as I've identified and showcased, we will be launching a independent advisory group, which is VOG specific, VOG focused. This will better inform and assist with policies, processes and decisions making as a service when we look at how we tackle violence against women and girls. Key agencies will form part of that, as well as many of our commissioned services. But we also feel that we're able to provide honest and informed insight via this group, and we have been able, and we are securing the voice of the survivor as well, because they are key to this advisory group. So again, this is very much at the infancy stage, but we're seeking to launch that early summer 2026. So I think that is a key piece of work as well moving forwards. And that's my presentation.
Thank you. What I'd like to do is just commend you on the innovative of the Walk in My Shoes survey. I was talking to our partner organisation in Derby about it yesterday, and they're interested in doing something similar. It also demonstrated engagement with the vulnerable and partnership working, which was really positive. The launch of the V10 programme, which is helping police and partners to manage risk among the most harmful domestic abuse perpetrators. You mentioned that. This proactive and preventative evidence-led approach should be commended. And then also there's some successful partnership working with Consent Coalition to launch safe spaces in the Nottingham initiative with the nighttime economy. So that's been really positive. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think we'd got the tally for the Walk in My Shoes to 3,500 respondents, I think, because there was some further work done, wasn't there? So it was a really good, really good response rate. Just Gail, on the DRIVE programme, before we move into your public questions, just a point of clarity. Is that the work with perpetrators going to be like our domestic abuse perpetrator programme, where it has to be voluntary in terms of the perpetrators we work with? Will it be the same again, presumably?
Yes, it will be the same again, but it's a longer programme, so it's a 12 to 18 month programme. So it's looking at the longevity of it and changing those behaviours. Yes.
In terms of the data on the Walk in My Shoes, your initial survey was for a 12-week period, and that was with the 2,800, and that's when it was identified a low uptake from the ethnic minority, and working in partnership with us survey was opened again, and we engaged with just slightly under 800 women from ethnic minority, which brought it up to 3,500. Yeah, so yeah, thank you. So going over to the questions from the public, we've got our question from Christine from Ravenshead.
I'm Christine Bunker. I live in Ravenshead. My question for the Chief Constable is, I would like to see more police officers on the beat to keep my granddaughter safe. Can you reassure me that this will be happening in my area?
Do you want me to start and then you? Yeah. Is the question directed at me or just at us generally? At me? Yeah.
You and
yeah.
then obviously Gail can contribute.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Okay. So, Christine, I can reassure you first and foremost that you will see more police officers on the beat. You will hopefully know that we have grown as an organisation in recent years, so we are much bigger now than we have been in a long, long time. We've got over 2,000, nearly 2,400 officers now, and we have got a dedicated neighbourhood policing team that amounts to 241 police officers and 150 PCSOs, and every single one of those is working in local areas, within neighbourhood policing areas. For each of those areas, there is a dedicated person who you can find on the intranet, and you can, on the internet, should I say, that you can reach out to and have a conversation with. And it's important to say that from a violence against women and girls perspective, that protecting women and girls is not just the domain of our specialist teams, and we do have specialist teams. We have domestic abuse teams, rape and serious sexual offence teams, and so on, lots of other specialisms. But what I have been really focused about, and the Chief is really focused about, is making sure that this is a whole force effort, so that every officer who goes out on patrol is thinking about the importance of violence against women and girls. And that's why, if you just heard what Gail said about the orders, for example, which are a tool that we use, are really, really important tool to protect people and to be able to pursue offenders with, the officers in local areas are fully sighted on all of those tools that are available and make maximum use of them. So, Gail, I didn't know whether you want to add anything to that specifically about.
No, I think that just reinforces the commitment.
Because I think the question's mostly about visibility and people being in the area, but them playing their part in terms of protecting women and girls from violence. So.
And keeping them safe, yes. Thank you. We're going to move on to the second question, which is from Wendy from Arnold.
Hello, my name's Wendy and I live in Arnold. My question is to the Chief Constable is if somebody does go to the police station or needs help straight away, is there anywhere that person can actually go without going back into the home?
The short answer to that, Wendy, is yes, there is. So we train all of our officers to think about vulnerability, and we train all of our officers to think about safeguarding. And so when an officer takes a report, whether that's an officer or a police staff member actually, so a person who works on the front counter, if that were the first port of call for the individual reporting something, they would hand that on to a police officer. But everybody is thinking about vulnerability, everybody is thinking about safeguarding. And so they are taught to think about, after a report has been made, what can that officer do to ensure that the person reporting is safe? And they will have a conversation with the complainant, and there are a whole range of things that are available to us, which can range from us taking that person to a different location of their choice, taking that person to a selected family member, taking that person in extreme occasions to a discreet location or to a hotel. And above and beyond that, we work with a whole range of different partners and different agencies who we can either link in directly with or signpost the complainant to, who can also support and assist with finding somewhere for that person to go, but with the absolute focus being upon making sure that that person is safe, because we would absolutely not just let them walk out of the police station and go back to the location where we know that they have been the victim of crime or mistreatment.
Thank you. And Wendy from Arnold has an additional question to ask you.
Are there any plans to extend the Ask for Angela scheme?
So, Wendy, we're really supportive of the Ask for Angela scheme. We have played our part in publicising and marketing the Ask for Angela scheme, and we will continue to do that. And I think, Gail, you might be able to help with this. I think we're about to go back out with some more marketing, are we?
We are, yes. It's the 10-year anniversary. So, yeah, we are looking to expand, and that includes working with partners and organisations to further safeguard and expand on the Ask for Angela.
Yeah, so it's already out there, Wendy, in pubs and clubs and lots of other different premises, and we will continue to extend that, yes.
Thank you. So now it's over to me, and the first question is, the National VOG Strategy was published last month. Can you tell us what impact this will have locally?
So I think a lot of the initiatives that I've just discussed on the presentation, that they are working towards those outcomes, and we're committed to fulfilling that. The opposite area is certainly a key initiative, and like we said with the Walk in My Shoes, the feeling of safety as well within our city and county. So I think the impact is there. I think it's a lot of work to do, but we're very committed to doing that.
How does it complement our local plan, the changes that you're going to bring forward?
So I think, again, coming back to the sort of compliance of orders, if I come back to that one initially, we're working closely with our local policing colleagues. So as Mr Griffin's just mentioned, it's not just around specialist teams, it's around a whole force approach and a wider workforce approach. So that impact is you have local officers who have that training, they have that knowledge. There's been a lot of investment to frontline officers for knowledge around VOG offending and how to protect and safeguard. And Mr Griffin's just mentioned as well about safety planning and safety netting for women and girls.
I think, Commissioner, just to add to that, I think it's probably worthy of saying that nothing in that strategy has really surprised us, because I think here in Nottinghamshire, working together with yourselves and with partners, we're probably ahead of the game. And when you look at our delivery plan here and then you look across the new strategy, a lot of what you see in our plan features in the strategy. So I don't think it's going to change an awful lot, and I think structuring it in the way that we've done through a 4Ps plan will continue to sort of drive that activity and deliver that strategy.
And also it's like the plans you have to roll out the RENEAMS law and the rapid video response as well. So that's part of the strategy. Thank you. My second question is, we know that the use of AI-generated images and tech-enabled VOG are growing threats. How is the force responding to these issues?
So the force have dedicated and specialist teams within our forensic digital teams, and there's a lot of work ongoing at the moment around how investigative strategies are being approached. Again, it's ever evolving, AI is ever developing, so I think the way to tackle that is through knowledge and understanding and technical abilities, and there has been investment within force within that area. Again, we have a strategic and tactical lead for tech-enabled crime, particularly VOG offending crime.
And that aligns really nicely with one of the pillars under Soteria is all about digital forensics. And so sitting within that governance, we have a digital forensics lead, and they're just constantly looking to enhance the technology and capabilities that we've got in force, to widen awareness for our officers and staff that work in those areas of business so they know what's available to them, and making it far easier for them to access that, which will enhance their investigations.
Thank you. And we've got some new laws that have come into force earlier this month as well, which make it illegal to create intimate, non-consensual images as well, so that will help. Moving on to my third question, could you tell me more about this and how the forces plans to enhance VOG-related education programmes in schools and colleges this year following the Walk in My Shoes campaign?
Yes, this is again an initiative that's ever developing and ever evolving. We're working closely with education providers. We have designated and specialist school engagement officers, and what they will be doing is they will be doing joint inputs both with educators, police, but also some of our commission services around healthy relationships. And a lot of those inputs are within curriculum for secondary schools. So again, it's that early learning, that early intervention, and the focus is on healthy relationships and what is appropriate behaviours. They're going to be delivered at secondary school age initially, but again, that's to everyone within that sort of age range.
And are the schools on board for that to be delivered?
Yeah, so again, we work closely with educators to do that. Like I say, the programme is within the curriculum. So again, it's building on that and enhancing and actually focusing on VOG offending and tackling those behaviours early before they have time to become embedded and develop.
Thank you. And number 4 is, can you tell me more about the new VOG independent advisory group you mentioned in your presentation?
Yeah, so like I say, it's really quite an exciting initiative. We have a number of IAGs in force, but this one will be VOG specific. We're just at the point where we are completing sort of the scoping exercise, the terms of reference, and then we will be going out to partners, commission services, PCC's office, obviously, and engaging with survivors for that to be held. We've received feedback, and through our scoping, that will both be opportunity to do in person, but also virtual. Again, that is to support attendance from survivors. And the key thing there, and part of the terms of reference is, it's to further develop our processes and policies and our approach to better inform us as a police service on how we ultimately tackle violence against women and girls.
In terms of the terms of reference, are you going to get other partners involved in writing those terms of reference? So there's inclusivity there right from the onset?
Most definitely. So like I say, it's very much in its infancy. There's been a draft proposal which will be shared with partners, obviously, for their sort of input before there's any final agreement. We've given a timescale on it sort of towards early summertime, so that enables a realistic approach to be able to deliver this and ensure that it is fit for purpose. And we support.
And what I would like to say, as the VOG strategic lead, I'd be happy to be involved at early stages as well.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Thank you. So my final question, what impact is Operation Satira having on improving rape and serious sexual offence outcomes?
So I mentioned in my presentation the increase and the data around the rape offending. Again, we've seen an increase in the other serious sexual offences, but the key increase, it's consistent. We are on a consistent trajectory of improvement. The biggest improvement is the rape charge rates. Like I mentioned before, we do have dedicated specialist RASO investigation teams. There is significant investment in training and approach to that, and we also work really, really closely with the ISVAs and support agencies around that. CPS have been key, the Crown Prosecution Service have been key in engagement in improving those charge rates.
Thank you. Is there anything you would like to ask Michelle now? Okay, so we're moving over to Agenda 5, which is police use of force and stop and search, and that's over to Superintendent Waldron.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Chief Superintendent Nick Waldron. This afternoon I'm going to be talking about the use of force and stop and search. I'm going to be touching on some statistics, not too heavily, but talking about disproportionality, the numbers that are involved that our officers within Nottinghamshire do, and a brief case study of a success story around stop and search, and also the most important thing really is around governance and accountability of how we monitor the performance of our officers from first engagement with the public right through to community engagement. So it's fair to say that over a long period of time, stop and search has been contentious in particular. It's been in the national news, been in the local media as well, but we believe it's an effective use of the power. It has certainly developed over the last 5 or 10 years, and it has been used very successfully across a number of policing operations and national sort of initiatives as well. So one sort of success story I want to talk about is Operation Listing. So most people will be aware of the challenges we faced within Nottinghamshire City Centre at the start of November, just prior to the Christmas market last year, where there was a high-profile media releases around young people with weapons, dealing drugs, etc. So we launched Operation Listing, which was an initiative with our colleagues across Nottinghamshire Police, but also a number of different agencies and partners as well, and Nottingham City Council. So part of that initiative was to use covert and overt resources, so officers in high visibility jackets, some other sort of covert work as well, but also use and encourage with our officers the use of stop and search. Ultimately, we made a number of arrests during that period, some as well attributed to stop and search. And as you can see from the positive media releases by with sort of early December, mid-December, there'd been a number of significant arrests in relation to weapon recoveries, drugs recoveries, and that public confidence and satisfaction and reassurance had increased during that period. So throughout the whole of Operation Listing, we ended up arresting around 200 people, or just over 200 people. Significant amounts of drugs recovered, so Class A, Class B drugs. A number of weapons, knives, machetes were also recovered around there as well, and other items as well. So a really good success story that if you use stop and search proportionately and you use it intelligence-led, based on current information, observations, public information, then it can be used to really good and positive effect. But also celebrate that success as well and be open and transparent with the public. So last year, so I'll talk about governance and accountability, but I'm just going to give you some brief highlights. So between November 2024 and October 2025, there was 3,622 stop and search submissions that came through, compared to 3,431, so just over 200 more. We look at disproportionality, which is it's calculated per 1,000 population head of the population of Nottinghamshire. So within those 3,622, there was 649 searches from black and minority ethnic individuals, which led to a disproportionality rate of 2.4, which in normal terms means that black and minority individuals are 2.4 times more likely to be stop and searched. Just some highlights then around how that's broken down, and we do break it down further, but these are just sort of basic highlights. So in relation to black individuals, that was 4.1 last period to 4.6, and mixed as well went up to 2.7. Out of those, 39.3% of those submissions were not stated. So this is individual self-defined ethnicity when officers engage initially with members of the public, and they're going through all the questions around it. It's our officers, we believe, aren't asking the right questions or getting the right information from individuals. Obviously, it's really important to get that so we can understand who we're engaging with and look where we can seek to improve as well. The next slide, please. So just again some highlights around here. So the majority of ages were 18 to 24, and this was in respect of white individuals. Ages more likely to be stopped and searched for each ethnicity, so black and Asian other, again 18 to 24, and then for mixed, that was 10 to 17. In respect of positive outcome, so positive outcome is when we conduct a stop and search and we recover something. So that might be a weapon, it might be drugs, it might be other commodity from individuals. So during this period, so again November 24 to October 25, our positive outcome rate was 35.5. It's slightly below on what it was the previous period, November 23 to 24, but still nationally we rank fairly high and amongst other forces and our most similar forces as well. This is a really good indicator that we are being intelligence-led and we are looking at the right people and we are using the power proportionately as well. Next slide, please. One thing we started monitoring, or we have to mandated to monitor in 2024, was vehicle stops under Section 163 of the Road Traffic Act. During this period, again, we stopped and recorded 5,326 vehicles within there. And this is equally as important as capturing the data around stop and search, because people have their liberty taken at times during this interaction and engagement with officers. Out of that 5,000 number, just over 1,000 was on black and minority ethnic individuals as well, and that was an overall disproportionality rate of 3.3. And you can see there from the slide, it was 3.8 for black, 1.2 for mixed, and 3.9 for Asian and other. There's still quite a bit of work we need to do around the vehicle stops, and despite a number of sort of campaigns with our officers and staff around it, it's really important that we are promoting it, but not only important to promote why we're doing it, it's just the importance of it longer term and building that trust and confidence up and engagement with the communities as well. Next one, please. Custody strip searches, again, it can be quite a contentious issue. I just wanted to bring some highlights into here. So during the period I've been discussing already, just over 2,000 custody strip searches, of which there were 320 on black and minority ethnic individuals. That was an increase of 254 records overall and 73 records for black and minority ethnic compared to the same period last year. So as you can see, disproportionality rate there was 1.4. One question I'm frequently asked around this is around custody strip searches around minors, so under 18s. So as you can see, 16.1, so 328 of that total were on under 18s, and out of that, nearly 80%, it was a change of clothing and removal of cords, so not an intimate search. Next one, please. Use of force, just over 17,000 records compared to just over 90 in the previous period. Again, this is certainly less contentious, but we do have strict governance around it. We have professional standards attend our governance meetings as well. The amount of complaints in respect of use of force and stop and search has significantly decreased over the last 2 years as well, almost into single figures now, which is a really positive aspect around that. Thank you. So governance and accountability. So there are various layers of governance and accountability of which I am involved with, right up through to the Deputy Chief Constable as well. So the first one I want to mention is independent community scrutiny panels, which is led by the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. So this is in respect of stop and search. So there are highly vetted individuals, members of the community, members who are part of stakeholder groups and partners who look at a number of cases each month, and they are selected to scrutinise, as it says on the tin pretty much, those stop and search cases. So they'll be looking at body-worn video, for example, they'll be looking at crime records, they'll be asked questions around those, and they are RAG rated, so red, amber and green. And then if there's any learning that comes from those, which there frequently is, most of them, to be fair, are really, really positive. We feed it back to the officers, we feed it into the Learning and Ethics and Integrity Board, which is chaired by ACC Verma, and then we embed it into our training schools and protocols and any sort of policy and things we need to change within there. So that's been running for a number of years. Later on into this year, we're bringing that in for the use of force as well. So by April this year, we'll have a set of new panel members. There'll be close connection between the two panels because there are some overlaps between use of force and stop and search. So that'll be well established within there as well, and we're following the same sort of principles around that. Powers Board is a meeting that I chair. Now there's lots of crossovers here. So for example, last night I was at the Independent Advisory Group for Amplified Voices, which is in essence relation to the black community. So we have Dion Rose, who's the lead member for the ICSP, who attends that meeting as well. Michael Henry, who also attends the Powers Board, and Hyacinth Francis as well. So all sort of well-respected members of the community who have really good engagement and connections within the community are there to apply that scrutiny within my Powers Board. So within there we discuss some of this data that we've spoken about there, but it's all about learning and sharing that information across our organisation and with partners as well. So we have professional standards, we have training school that attend, and a number of different other key partnerships as well. So we can, I can be held to account, and the organisation can be held to account on how we scrutinise stop and search. I then feed into the Deputy Chief Constable's Earning Trust and Confidence Board, and then we look again how we will embed organisational learning at a deeper level, and that might sort of feed into regional and national policy as well. Something that Gail's touched on is the independent advisory groups. So there are currently 10 now across Nottinghamshire, which has expanded significantly over the last couple of years. We've just expanded that to a multi-faith one, but as I've just alluded to, there's an Amplified Voices, there's a multi-faith communities one, South Asian communities one as well, LGBTQ+. So we have plenty of representation from members of the community who are able to scrutinise some of this data, feedback, because it doesn't just apply to black and minority ethnic groups. Certainly, for example, I get lots of calls or discussions from the LGBTQ+ about how they feel, and it might not always be around stop search, but it might be around use of force, and it might be around strip searches, etc. as well for members of their communities. And overseeing that is the Strategic Independent Advisory Group, which is chaired by Dr. Claire Williams from Nottingham Trent University. She is a respected academic, and she has oversight now of all of those independent advisory groups. I attend that meeting, as do the chairs and deputy chairs of the other independent advisory groups as well. And again, that's all about shared learning, holding the organisation to account, and quite often there's cases that we discuss around stop and search, use of force, etc. within there as well. This feeds into the Race Action Plan. ACC Verma is the force lead for the Race Action Plan, and certainly all those areas I've just spoken about is an integral part of how we inwardly and outwardly deliver the Race Action Plan across Nottinghamshire as well. We look at national guidance, we look at revising our policy frequently. The latest one we did was around the transgender searching in July 2025. It was quite a contentious issue, both nationally and locally, but we consulted widely with our independent advisory group partners around that as well. And now we have a process in place where we've been quite open and transparent with individuals, and we accept and we welcome feedback to come back in as well, so we can look at how we can learn and develop that as well. One of the most important things, and I think something probably we neglected many years ago, is how we train our officers. So we have a significantly developed training school now within the organisation, and we have stop and search scenarios, so we welcome members of the public, members from the independent advisory groups, the independent community scrutiny panels, to come in and observe that training, and often they do feedback. They feedback information to me as well, really, really useful things, even if it's not necessarily about protocol. It might be about civility, how officers speak to individuals, how we escalate or de-escalate use of force, for example, and take away learning from there. And that's also embedded into our yearly training schedules as well, both classroom-based and also practical-based as well, which we sort of embed within there. And then just the final bit to touch on really is around our published data, which we are open and transparent with. We publish it on our website. It gets discussed in both the internal scrutiny panels and to the external scrutiny panels as well, of which I think it's probably fair to say we've got a very good relationship with members of the community. Certainly when something goes wrong, they contact us, and we are able to go and talk to them about it, but also celebrating success as well. And I do quite often get positive feedback where officers have had good engagement. So there's one not so many months ago on the chase at St Anne's, where there'd been an engagement from our firearms officers, and it was fed back a couple of negative points around sort of public view and how it was conducted around stop and search, but also the civility from officers and how they spoke to people. And we have people as well now that report back in through these panels to say, actually, our stop and search wasn't a great experience, but the officers were really polite to me. It wasn't what I thought it was, and I've told other people about it. It's actually not something to be concerned about, and it was officers doing the job. So we sort of see the other positive impact of how that comes across as well.
Thank you. And I'd just like to commend the increasing in the independent scrutiny through quarterly community scrutiny panels, which review and provide structured feedback to the stop and search cases. The inclusion of guidance on transgender searching in the revised stop and search policy, and alongside some of the good force-wide communications to officers and staff on this topical issue. I had the group approach me months ago, and I signpost them to the IAG for them to engage directly with yourselves as well. I'm really pleased to hear about the steps being taken to improve ethnicity recording. It really helps us with the data and look at stop and search and where the stop and search is happening with which community groups as well. It's something for us to work with, but thank you for that, and engaging with the Notts Youth Commission to co-design improvements. What we're going to do is that we have one question from the public, and it's Amy.
I'm Amy, and I'm from around Cresswell, so it's Nottinghamshire, but I work in Nottingham, South Notts, over 4 districts. My question for the Chief Constable on police use of force is, what's the threshold for when force is used? So where would it come in, what warrants it, and what sort of amount of force is acceptable?
The answer is it's really every case on its merits, but what we train officers to do when they're using force in any scenario or any environment is to use what we call the National Decision Model, and that informs all of their decisions. And at the very centre of that decision-making model are the Code of Ethics, where officers are implored to do the right thing in the right way and for the right reasons. But there are some bigger guidors for them about when they can and can't use force. So if we deal specifically about stop search, so stop search is a power that comes from the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, and what the Police and Criminal Evidence Act says in a much later provision of that legislation is that any power given to an officer by that legislation, officers can use reasonable force in order to exercise that power. And what is asked of them is that any force that they use is proportionate, that it's lawful, that they can properly account for it, and that it's necessary, and then they apply the Code of Ethics, which I've already described. And so they are to use those things as guidors to them about when they should and when they shouldn't, and when they can and when they can't use force. Anything to add?
I was just going to add what I've already sort of spoken about the sort of escalation and de-escalation. Really, we do encourage officers through these sort of training scenarios that we deliver, which is sort of live action training scenarios, to basically use verbal communications, which is really key, and I think probably sometimes a bit of a forgotten art within policing. But we sort of encourage that, you know, we can use force at that point of contact around stop and search, but actually it's that sort of verbal communication, that rapport building, and like I said about young people contacting us to say, we've had a fairly positive experience of being stopped and searched, officers have explained everything. So it's about that sort of first contact and the sort of first impression when we engage with people.
Thank you. Thank you. And we've got a number of questions we'd like to ask, and I'm going to hand over to Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks, Deputy Commissioner. Asking these on behalf of Commissioner Godden, who's at a meeting in London today, so can't be here. Nick, thanks for what you've said about stop and search and the work of the scrutiny panel, independent, because that panel, like us, looks at those stop and search encounters from a different perspective. So that sort of policy and legal checklist of, was it a compliant stop and search, is one thing, but that civility piece and how the individual will feel after they walk away from that interaction is key, isn't it? So that, I think, is reassuring for the public to hear, especially when they will see things internationally in the news in terms of police tactics or in dramas. I think that correcting of perceptions is really important. So I think the Commissioner will be really encouraged by what you said around training and the work of that panel and what the force is doing. But just to help public understanding in relation to the positive outcome rate in relation to stop and search, is that the figure of 34.5, of course the public will say, a bit like the RASO conviction rate, yeah, but the 64.5% of those stops that haven't resulted in anything, so you were wrong to stop and search. Do you want to just address that for the public to understand?
Well, like I said at the start, we are intelligence-led, we have to have a purpose around it, we have to follow a model when we sort of engage with the public, and not every, we might sort of see, I'll give a sort of basic scenario where we might see a package pass between individuals, or we might have information from members of the public. We'll take the city centre where someone might say, I've seen this person with a machete or a knife and they've been waving it around. So we're legitimately then able to go and engage with somebody and enforce stop and search and potentially use force if we needed to detain that person. So maybe there's multiple scenarios where that's the case, where we don't actually end up recovering anything because it's just information that we've got from the public, but it still gives us that legitimate power to then go and speak to people and do it as well. So there's many of those interactions. It might be that we use the power a bit wider. So again, I'll sort of relay it back to the city centre where we're getting multiple reports of people dealing. So we might detain multiple people at that time. So it might be we've detained one person, recovered something. We might be detained other people from the same group and not recovered anything as well. So there's multiple factors of what the negative outcomes are. But again, it's something we do look at and scrutinise. One thing, if I may, that I'd just like to sort of bring in is just around the knife crime team. So you probably have heard about the knife crime team operating across the organisation, but also the positive results that they have. We do also monitor their sort of stop and searches as well, so they're a very proactive team. We do put them into areas. We have a fortnightly tasking and coordination meeting where we sort of look at our crime challenges and move those resources around. So last year, so 2025, there were 471 stop searches that were undertaken by the knife crime team, and out of those 172 were where we recovered something from there. The rider on that is, it may be we've recovered some commodity or drugs or weapons, whatever it is, from an individual, but we might be arresting multiple people as well. So that figure of 172 is certainly going to be a significant amount more in reality, really. So that equates to just over 36%. So similar to what it is as an organisation, but again, it just shows the productivity and the sort of usefulness of using the tactic and the knife crime team as well.
It's articulated very well in his presentation. The training has really drilled in the differential between search and arrest. If they've got reasonable grounds to suspect, then they will deal with the stop and search in regards to that particular aspect of it. But that's not exact science. So if they had the grounds to arrest, they won't be searching. So that's where we've got really into the heart of the training, so that officers understand the powers that they have. So yes, there will be 64% of people that perhaps will say that they ought not to have been searched. But actually, there will be a lot of people where we will be arresting them first because we've got the grounds to arrest them, as opposed to actually going into the search mode.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Thank you. Thanks, Nick. And then just in terms of, again, for public understanding, you talked about understanding how, the community's understanding why the tactic is being deployed. So you mentioned oplisting, which was a successful pre-Christmas operation, responding to a need that had been there in the city. How does the force go through engaging with the community to understand how the tactic being deployed will land? Because some people will be positive about that tactic being used and others won't be. So what mechanisms, to explain to the public, do the force go through to sense check, to be a barometer for how the tactic will land with the public?
So in respect of uplisting or any significant incident, so it might be a critical incident, it might be a response to a murder or serious violence, we will look to consult with, mainly through the independent advisory groups. So we have a really good network, an established network around there. So for example, recent murders within the city, we're able to engage through our Amplified Voices IAG and the Strategic IAG to say, we're looking to do this, or we're looking to put this press release out, we're looking to use these tactics, can we have your community views? We also have a very strong, what we call KIN network, which is Key Integrated Network. So each neighbourhood policing area will have a number of key contacts in essence, so that might be members of the public, it might be councillors, it might be other stakeholders and partners, and we're able to engage with those and we'll capture the thoughts and feelings of the community. Also through the media as well that comes in, we get quite a lot of information there. And then we will, and certainly for uplisting, we'll run what we call a community impact assessment. So we'll make an assessment of all those factors I've just mentioned, from whether it be from the public directly, whether it be through media, whether it be through independent advisory groups, maybe through our own personal contacts within the force, and make an assessment of what feeling that tactic is. And we can move that tactic and control it. But generally, it's a really positive sort of feedback around the stop and search. And I think because we have been more open and transparent with the public and the communities, it's been very widely accepted and certainly showing some of the success stories as well. And when we sort of showing that we're taking a significant amount of weapons off the streets as well, that's a real sort of testament to the use of the work we're doing.
I think involving members of the public in the training and showing the public that that's what's...
So you come back with some really good feedback and some really simple things that we've not thought about.
Yeah.
It might be from your officers weren't wearing gloves, or perhaps your officers could have said this or done this a little bit better, perhaps you could approach them from a different angle, perhaps you could have explained this first. So it's really sort of covers a lot of aspects, and bringing that community members in does provide a different dynamic to how we deliver it.
I think the first point of contact is the most important one. Absolutely. And it's that approach. If it comes across aggressive, they will get defensive, but it's that approach in the first point of contact to build that trusting relationship.
Absolutely. And it's like I gave the example around the firearms officers, the fact they'd approached them, three young black males in St Anne's, felt intimidated at the start, but actually I even reviewed the body-worn footage myself, and having seen it, I went in contact with the officers because the engagement was just so natural, as I'd expect them to be, and they explained everything from the start, got nothing to worry about, we've just had some information around this, there's been an incident, and they just talked it through stage by stage and really did leave a positive impact. And that then gets fed back to some of our community leaders and back to us as well. So
I completely agree with that, Commissioner, because every single interaction is a moment of jeopardy between the police and whoever it is that they're searching, isn't it? Because after all, at that point, that person has done absolutely nothing wrong, and yet we are about to expose them to what is a fairly intrusive tactic and might just well involve the use of force. And it might still turn out that actually they've done absolutely nothing wrong. And subject then to how we approach that and the moment of first contact and the comms that Nick's just spoke about, absolutely critical. Because that experience for one person, if approached in the right way, can be not necessarily a positive one, but one that they can accept, versus if approached in a different way, an experience that they will never forget and will tarnish their impression of the police forevermore. So yeah, you're absolutely so important, and that's why the power's so contentious, isn't it?
And it's about having advocates to advocate on your honesty was, because when we go in the community and then some people have had not such a good experience with the police, but us explaining and getting them on board. So we need communities to work with the force to advocate of the engagement and how we can engage and address those barriers and look at solutions going forward. And particularly important.
And it's about having advocates to advocate on your guys' behalf, because when we go in the community and then some people have had not such a good experience with the police, but us explaining and getting them on board. So we need communities to work with the force to advocate of the engagement and how we can engage and, address those barriers and look at solutions going forward. Sorry.
No. And particularly important where we do have issues of disproportionality. And I'll move on to a couple of questions around that, Nick, if you want, if you don't mind. So I know you said that there's more to do around the data capture. So not all officers are recording ethnicity. And just give us a sense of the work being done in relation to improving the data capture.
So this is not unique to Nottinghamshire. It is an issue nationally. And again, we've had some really positive feedback from the independent community scrutiny panels only a couple of weeks ago around really good interaction, good engagement with the members of the public. The officer put their own self-defined ethnicity, so the officer defines it, didn't ask the question to the individual. So we have delivered lots of training to it. We embedded it in multiple training days. We do it right from officers when officers join the organisation. They have inputs around this and the importance of it. And like I said, the scenario-based training, it does appear then that some officers are either reluctant or don't want to ask about it. So whether they feel it's a contentious point to raise it, rather than actually approaching people and saying, so I define myself as white British, for example, how do you find yourself? I've got a list of things here. So we are looking at some automation around that to ensure that officers are putting it in, because we are missing lots of important information by not getting it right. But there are measures in place to do it. There's lots of training, there's posters. I certainly delivering it at divisional training days, the importance of it. And I think it's important that officers don't realise it's just another data capture for statistic purpose. There's actually a real important reason behind this to understand, are we over-policing this particular tactic? Thank you.
And I think it's the why, isn't it? It's explaining the why is about the force wanting to address disproportionality. So, Suk, I don't know whether you want to say anything about the race action plan and the work in this area around tackling disproportionality.
Yeah, so it's a running thread through the race action plan, as you know, Michelle. So particularly in work streams 2 and 3, which are very outward facing in that sense. And I think Nick touched upon quite a challenging part of policing at the moment. When we go back to the earlier question that you discussed around every contact leads a trace, the other element to add on to that is bias and awareness of bias. And there's obviously a lot of challenge towards officers at the moment around perception of bias and perhaps implementation of bias in stops. So some of that Nick's talking about will be where officers haven't asked the question. Some of that will be where recipients of stop and search have turned around and said, I'm not going to state. Where we've got two data capture points is one what the officer defines it as, and the other one is around what is self-defined. The interesting part for us is to start to correlate those two figures together to understand, because actually if we looked solely at the officer-defined ethnicity, sometimes it would give us a more accurate reflection of what's going on, as opposed to then putting in the 35-40% not stated, which really does skew the figures and the proportionality. We want to fully understand what's going on. The other thing that we're looking at, particularly with Nottinghamshire as a force area, is it's so vast, it's so different. We need to start to understand the hotspots and the pockets of where disproportionality might exist more than others. And we do understand that to an extent, but the data through Power BI, through the boards that has been discussed earlier, is something that we want to lift out from the race action plan, and also get the opinion from the public back so we can keep washing that through. Yeah. But what is reassuring, without going on for too long, is around since the inception of the race action plan, that's where the Powers Board was born out, that's where the independent scrutiny was born out, that's where the ICSP grew, that's where the IAG grew from 1 to 10. So there's been lots of beneficial points where we've started to engage, I think, far better than anyone else. And in a couple of weeks' time, there's an event in Brighton to look at the importance of the IAG and the community engagement model post Macpherson 99, and we will be going down as a force to discuss where we are as well.
Okay. No, thanks, and thanks, Nick. Just one last question, if I may. It's a complex area, as we've heard, and now I know the report mentions a new policy on stop and search, which mentions stop and search in relation to transgender people in our communities. What are you doing to ensure confidence among officers? We've talked about confidence in asking questions around ethnicity. What's the force doing in relation to confidence around interactions with those from the transgender community?
So again, this is down to training, but I think certainly when this law came in to bring the new policy in, it was really contentious. Yeah. It was, I suppose the guidance was a little bit mixed of to what we could do. There was a lot of stuff in the media around it. Officers were quite confused, I suppose a little bit reluctant to do it. So we sought specialist legal advice around it in particular, and then looked to sort of deliver that to officers to make sure they've got that understanding. We have the internal networks as well within the organisation, so we've consulted with those to make sure that officers are understanding it, and actually members within the organisation from the LGBTQ plus community, for example, are coming and delivering and speaking to officers to give them that confidence and reassurance around it, and we certainly deliver that approach right from officers joining the organisation.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Commissioner. I haven't got any more questions.
Thank you. That brings an end to the public session.